Welcome back to Kidding Around. My name is Melanie Smith, and I am thrilled that you are here with me today to talk about another wonderful woman. Today, we will be talking about the woman famous for her French cooking, Julia Child, and we'll also get to make our very own French recipe. Before we do that though, if you like what you're seeing here and want to follow along with all of Kidding Around's videos, please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure when you're there that you click the thumbs up button below each video. And also, if you really enjoy what you're doing here, please share us with your friends. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to Julia Child. Have you heard her name before? Chances are that you have. Most people know about her because of her cooking show called The French Chef. But we are going to talk a little bit about her before she became the French chef, and we're going to talk about some facts that probably not a lot of people know about her. She was born in 1912 in Pasadena, California, and she was the eldest of 3 children in her family. She was very tall. She actually stood 6 feet 2 inches tall, which is pretty tall for a woman. Her height helped her though in high school, and she played tennis, golf, and basketball. And here we get to the information that a lot of people don't know. When the U.S. entered World War II, she wanted to serve her country, but she was too tall to serve. So she joined the Office of Strategic Services, also known as the OSS, which was the forerunner of the Central Intelligence Agency, or the CIA. While she worked for the OSS, she worked on a shark repellent to keep sharks from attacking naval officers and to keep them also away from accidentally setting off underwater bombs during the war. While she was working there, she met her husband, Paul, who loved French food. After the war, Paul and Julia married and moved to France. That's when she became interested in French cuisine. Until then, she didn't know much about cooking at all. She enrolled in Le Cordon Bleu, one of France's most prestigious cooking schools, and she really took to it. After that, she began working on her book, Mastering the Art of French Cooking. It took her 10 years of working on recipes and rewriting and editing before the book was published. It is a very well-known book, even still today, and I feel that there is a lesson here in Julia Child's experience. Sometimes things take a while. You can't always just sit down and get something done very fast and have a quality product on the other side of it. It's important to take your time and do a good job and have something that you are proud of on the other side. I am sure that Julia Child was proud of her book. After she published her book, she was hired to become the French chef on TV. And as I mentioned earlier, that is how most people think of Julia Child when they think of her. They think of her as the French chef. So in honor today of Julia Child, French chef, we are going to make our very own French recipe called clafoutis. This is a baked fruit dessert, or maybe even breakfast. To do this, you will need a few supplies. You will need some flour, some sugar, some salt, some vanilla. You'll also need some butter and milk, 3 eggs, and then some fruit. In a traditional clafoutis, black cherries would be used, but I have to tell you, in January, sometimes it's a little bit hard to find any type of cherry. So we are going to use strawberries, but you could use apples or peaches or blackberries or blueberries or raspberries or really any type of fruit in place of those cherries or strawberries that we'll be using today. All right, in addition to all of the food that I just mentioned, you will need a knife, you will need a mixing utensil, a mixing bowl, you will need a pan to put your clafoutis in. You should also be using a cutting board, and let's see, what else do I have? Measuring spoons and measuring cups. All right, so let's get started. All right, the first thing that you need to do when you are preparing food is you need to make sure that your hands are clean. So make sure that you wash with soap and water for 20 seconds to make sure that you're not going to accidentally be passing on any germs that you don't want to be passing on to people who would be eating your food. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is prepare our pan. So I will tell you that the recipe, which I will also post below this video, calls for a fruit tart pan. I don't have a tart pan, so I am going to be using a pie pan, and it works just as well. But if you have a fruit pan or a tart pan, I would go ahead and use it. Then you are going to take your butter, which I should have put a little bit closer to me, right? And you are going to take about 2 teaspoons. This is not an exact measurement at all, but just a little bit of butter, just like that. And you are going to butter your pan, no matter what kind of pan it is. So to do that, I put the butter in my pan, and then I'm going to take a paper towel, and I'm going to hold the butter, and I am just going to kind of squish it around the pan. It helps when you do this if the butter has not come straight from the fridge. If you do have butter that is just straight from the fridge, go ahead and warm it in the microwave for just 2 or 3 seconds just to get it so that it's smooth and moves around your pan very well. Alright, so you can see here I am smashing this butter around, and even though it is warm, it is not spreading incredibly well, but that's okay, I'll work with it. So I'm going to make sure to get all the sides and the bottom, and then even the very top. And then if you have a little bit of extra butter left over, you can just scoop that out and toss that. You probably won't have too much left over. All right, now our pan is prepared. I'm going to put that aside so that you can see how I'm going to prepare our fruit. So I am going to be using a very sharp knife, so I definitely want to make sure that I am using smart knife skills. So I am going to put the fruit down, and I'm going to make sure that my fingers are completely out of the path of the knife before I put the knife on the fruit. They are completely out of that path, and then I am going to just cut the top of the strawberry off, and then I am going to cut my strawberries into about thirds. Of course, the way that you prepare your fruit depends on what kind of fruit you have. So if you are preparing apples, you would obviously be cutting those differently. You can use an apple core or an apple slicer. A peach would be different. So you just want to prepare your fruit in the way that makes sense for the fruit. So I see that even on these big strawberries, I said I was cutting in thirds, but on the bigger strawberries, I see that it makes more sense for me to cut in quarters. So I'm doing that, and I am just going to continue doing that until I have the bottom layer of my pan filled. And you can see I am not making these super thin. My slices are relatively thick, and that's what I want. I want to be able to, with every forkful, taste the fruit that I have put in this clafoutis. I will tell you that if you are using strawberries when they cook don't always look the happiest after they come out of the oven. Please trust me in knowing that they taste so much better than they look. And if that's a concern for you, if you're really, really trying to impress the person that you are making this for, and you don't want to have to explain that sometimes strawberries cook down and look a little weird, maybe you should use a different fruit. Like I said, the traditional fruit used for clafoutis is black cherries. So the way that you prepare those is that you take the stems off, and in a true clafoutis official French style, you would still even leave the pits in as you fix your clafoutis, because the pits are said to add flavor. But then of course you want your people that are eating it to know that there are pits in there so they know not to eat them. So really it's up to you, whatever fruit you like. I would love to try this with cherries. I haven't tried it with cherries, but I'm sure that it would taste so yummy. All right, so you can see my pan here is almost full. I think I'll probably put just a couple more strawberries in it. And then, I don't know if you noticed, when I showed you my slice at the beginning, the strawberries kind of floated to the top. So you will see these, even though you're going to cover most of them with the mixture that we're making. All right, so I think now I have a pretty good layer of strawberries, and I will move my cutting board aside. Now I'm also going to move my pan aside so that I can start mixing our other ingredients. So here's my bowl. I'll get the butter out of the way too so you can see better. So now we are going to mix our flour, sugar, and salt together. So I'm going to pull out my flour, and I'm going to pull out my half cup. You can see there maybe, I don't know if you can see that or not, it says half cup. And then I am going to fill my cup over the flour container. You will notice that some people may just stick the measuring cup down into the flour or the sugar and measure it that way. The thing is, the official way is to actually scoop in your material into your measuring cup, because that is what most recipes assume that you will be doing, and the air pack is a little bit different if you scoop it versus if you spoon it out. So I always fill my cups overflowing, and then I take the spoon that I've just used to fill the cup, and I kind of split the flour, and then I just kind of scoot it across so that I know for sure that I have a flat measurement, and there we go. That is exactly a half a cup of flour. All right. My space isn't as big as yours probably is, so you won't have to do quite as much finagling around as I am. But that's all right. We'll get it done, right? All right, so we're going to do the same now as we measure the sugar. I'm going to scoop in the sugar, and I need a half a cup of that as well. I did mention that we needed a half a cup of flour, so we need a half a cup of sugar as well. And you'll see that as I'm filling it, I'm holding it over the sugar container, so if I were to spill, the sugar would just go back into the sugar container and wouldn't cause a big mess. You know, if you spill sugar, it gets very sticky very quickly. So if you accidentally spill sugar, not over the top of your sugar container, make sure to wipe it up very quickly. All right, so you can see I'm getting close here. Sugar is obviously a different texture than flour, so it feels like it measures a little differently. Okay, so there we go. I've got my mounded sugar. I'm going to split it, and then I make sure that it fills in all of the cracks there, and then I just go ahead and scoop it off into the sugar container. And then I am going to pour it in my bowl. All right, now I am going to put my 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt in. I will tell you, I don't have an 1/8 of a teaspoon. I am not obviously an official French cook, so I am going to fill up my 1/4 teaspoon about halfway, because 1/4 is 1/8 plus 1/8. So, oh wow, that I got way too much. So I'm going to pour some back in, and then of course we know this is not exact. And if you want to be an official French chef, you should probably get an 1/8 of a teaspoon measuring spoon, but I am just going to go with about 1/2 of a 1/4. All right, so I dumped that in as well. All right, now I'm going to stir this up and make sure that the flour and the sugar and the salt gets evenly distributed, and then we will move on to our next step, which is to put in the eggs and melted butter and vanilla extract. Oh, and milk too. All right, so I think that's probably pretty mixed. You want to make sure to get down right into I want to say corners of the bowl, even though that doesn't quite make sense, but I think you know, right where the bowl kind of concaves, or right where the bowl kind of curves, you want to make sure to really get your fork down in there to make sure that that flour gets completely mixed into the sugar. All right, then we are going to take our milk, and we are going to use a liquid measure for milk, because liquids and dry materials, that sounds right, ingredients, that's better. Liquids and dry ingredients measure differently. So then I'm going to take my liquid measuring cup, and I am going to pour in exactly 1 cup. And there we go. And then I am going to pour that into my flour, sugar, and salt. And I know, I don't think I showed you this cup, but you can see that when it was flat on the table, I filled it up so that it was at 1 cup. It's important as you measure liquids to make sure that you've got your measuring cup on a flat surface so that it's solid and stable, so that you know for sure if you're at the line or not. All right, so now I've got my milk in this mixture, and I am going to whisk it all together. Again, I'm wanting to get right into the curve of the bowl to make sure that I'm getting everything dissolved into this milk, and that I don't have clumps of flour or sugar down in the bottom. So I'm really going to mix it. Okay, once I have that done, then I am going to put in my eggs. Whoops. So I've got 3 eggs, and I'm going to put them in individually. I'm going to crack them each into a bowl, and then if they look okay and smell okay, then I will put them into my recipe. This way, if I accidentally get a bad egg, I won't ruin my recipe. If I just cracked it straight in there, I might ruin the entire rest of what I have already mixed. So, okay, so I am going to crack this egg, and it looks good, so then I'm going to put it into my mixture. And then I'll do the same with the other two. Cracking eggs takes a little bit of practice, but just keep at it, and I am sure that you will get it. And you know what? If you get a little bit of shell in the bowl here, it's much easier to pick out than it would be if you put it straight into the rest of your ingredients. All right, so I've got my 3 eggs in there, and then I am going to put 2 tablespoons of melted butter in here. Now I see that this has kind of unmelted itself, but that's all right. Once it mixes in, it will be fine. Yours obviously will be melted. You can just put it into the microwave for about 25 seconds, your 2 tablespoons of butter, and it will obviously be liquid and easier to use there. And then I am going to put my vanilla in. So this is 2 teaspoons of vanilla. So I've got my teaspoon, and then I am going to, over my bowl, in case I spill, pour 1 teaspoon, and then pour a 2nd teaspoon. All right. Let's see, we have our eggs, we have our butter and our vanilla. All right, and now I am just going to mix this all together. So I find that when I have eggs in a mixture that it's easier to go straight to the yolks and try to break those up as I mix things. So I'm going to those yolks and I'm trying to break those up, and then I will continue mixing my entire recipe together. All right, so this just takes a little bit, not a ton of time. Let's see, and here we go. It's looking pretty good. This is what it's supposed to look like. So I'll just continue mixing just a little bit extra just to make sure that everything is completely combined. All right, that looks good to me. Now I am going to take my pan full of strawberries, and I am going to pour my mixture straight on. So very carefully, I'm just going to pour over my strawberries. All right. And then we'll just scrape the last of that goodness out into the pan. And this is what your pan should look like. All right, then you are going to put this into a preheated oven of 350 degrees for about 45 minutes. Once the custard is firm, you will know that it's done. And of course, all of these instructions and all of these measurements and everything are on the recipe, which is below this video. So please double check that and make sure that you're going along with that as well. So I'm going to put this into the oven, and then in 45 minutes, I will pull it out and I will meet you back here with a warm, fresh clafoutis. All right, through the magic of video, I am back 45 minutes later with a very warm, very yummy smelling clafoutis. So this is what it looks like when it's finished. Like I said, remember the strawberries look a little bit weird after they've been cooked, but I promise you, they are so yummy. And of course you can use any type of fruit that you want if you would prefer not to use these strawberries that get a little bit shriveled as they get warm. So for the finishing touches, I would take just a little bit of powdered sugar and I would just sprinkle it on, and then I would cut it and put it on a plate and serve it to my family and friends. You can serve this warm or cold. In fact, I saw in France they serve it lukewarm. So you just can't go wrong. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you had fun learning a little bit about Julia Child and also learning a little bit about baking. I hope that you enjoy your yummy clafoutis, or actually, because we didn't use cherries, it's called flongyard. So I hope that you enjoy it no matter what you call it. I hope that you are able to join me on Monday. We'll be doing another Masterpiece Monday lesson. I would love to do some art for you. Well, I guess we're wrapped up on another wonderful woman lesson. Thanks so much for joining me. Thanks for kidding around with me. I will see you next time.